YouTube, what's going on today, guys? In today's video, I'm going to be showing you my new build for my Devastator. It is the build that I showed in my last video that I said I was going to reveal if you guys liked the video. So now we're going to go over the pieces. Then somebody in the comments suggested that I try out Scorched Lands with this build, and then we'll do that. So first I'm going to show pieces of gear, the set, what it does, and what each one of the mods do, and how you would run it. We're running the Marshal set, and in the Marshal set, you can see that Endless Mass pulls enemies and causes up to 4 of them to share 10% anomaly damage and 30% weapon damage for 5 seconds. So I'm going to show you in the skills what Endless Mass does. So you'll see it'll mark one enemy, and it'll pull in all the other enemies to that location. That's good for filtering in a bunch of enemies into one location and just nuking them. So the first piece of gear we are running in the Marshal set, as you can see, those 3 pieces, is the mask, because these 3 pieces all are the Anomaly Power pieces. The other 2 down here would have max health. So the mask, the tier 3 on it, is going to increase the radius of Endless Mass by 25%. So you're going to be able to pull in more enemies. The other mod that we have on it is we're going to gain 1 more Earthquake to tier 3 from another piece. So that'll give us up to 2 Earthquakes now. The next piece is the Marshal's Armor, the chest piece. The tier 3 on it is the High Intensity. And what that will do is all the enemies that are pulled in from Endless Mass will get increased anomaly damage against them by 33% for 5 seconds. So we are already getting 4 of them marked for 10% more damage, plus all of the enemies marked for 33% more damage. So those 4 that are marked on top of the 10%, they're going to actually be bumped up another 33, which will be 43% to those 4 targets. And both are tied to 5 seconds. So just by one press of a button, you get that massive buff. And not just you, your teammates will as well. So it's really helpful for having teammates that also have Anomaly Power builds that get that nice buff as well. And you can see that we're running the extra Quake mod for the 3rd Earthquake. The next piece of gear is the Marshal's Waistcloth. This one I feel like is very powerful for whenever you're focusing down multiple elites. As you can see, power assimilation, the tier 3 that comes on that, boost your anomaly power by 11,000 for each elite present on the battlefield. So a lot of those big areas where there's a bunch of cremators, a bunch of ironclads, a bunch of alphas, shit like that will bump up your damage. Then the other mod we are running, another tier 3 from another piece, it is double jump. So gravity leap is now going to be able to use twice. So we are going to have 3 earthquakes, 2 gravity leaps, and Endless Mass. So the gloves that we are running is Anomaly Power cooldown reduction and healing received. I feel like that healing received you could literally have as anything. My suggestion would be Skills Life Leech or Status Power, because Status Power will give you a little bit more damage for all the enemies that you're going to melee. You're going to want to melee a lot. I'll show you why here in just a moment. So we have Ground Crush. I did a lot of testing with this, and it seems like with all the multiplicative buffs that you're getting from this towards your anomaly damage, that it seems like they're based on the skills based damage. So you're increasing Earthquake's base damage by 84,000. But then when you add all the multiplicative buffs, it's actually increasing its total end of the math equation's damage by a lot more than that. So in other words, if you were to take 2 and multiply it by 2, then it's going to obviously equal 4. But then if you increase that first number to 3, then it's going to equal 6. Same exact, that's very simplified. The same exact idea. You're increasing the base number that the multiplicative buffs are multiplying off of, so the end goal is actually much bigger. So then the other mod we're running on it is Unstoppable Force. We're not stacking this mod, as you've seen all the way through. I've seen a lot of people do that. I don't suggest that. It's an exploit, not a build. This unstoppable force we are running, I'll explain exactly why we're running it and how it can benefit you in not just 1 or 2 ways, but 3 or 4 ways. So what happens is you get more anomaly power based upon the resistance piercing you have. So for example, if I had 30% resistance piercing, it's going to increase my anomaly power by 15%. So what it does is it takes the 50% you see there, it takes half of whatever your total percent of resistance piercing is and adds that percent to your anomaly power. So right now my stats in multiple directions are actually being buffed right now from it. Then our last piece of gear, same thing with the anomaly power cooldown reduction healing received. You can have that healing received be whatever you want. Status power would give you more damage from whenever you melee an enemy, because the melees cause a bleed. You could have Steel's Life Leech just for some more survivability. I feel like that, if you're worried about the survivability, Steel's Life Leech on all these pieces, as well as the one gun you'll hold in your hand, is the most necessary. On my current build, I have 2 healing received, and then I have 4 Steel's Life Leeches. I'll show you that here in a moment when I show you the weapon. So, like I said, Human Comet is, we're running that for the same exact thing as we are running the Ground Crush, just increasing that total damage at the end of the equation based off the multiplicative buffs. So then we're running the tier 3 from another piece of gear called Despair, and what it does is enemies within the damage radius of Gravity Loop will receive 1.5 times more anomaly damage for 5 seconds, so another 5-second buff. So what's going to happen is you're going to jump up with Gravity Leap, slam down on the group of enemies that you have used Endless Mass on. What's then going to happen is you're going to get that damage increase from Endless Mass, the extra mod from Endless Mass for that 33%, the Marshal set, and then this. So my suggestion for the combo rotation is you would Endless Mass as many enemies as you can into one location, Gravity Leap them twice. Pretty sure this is stacking to be 3 times more damage. Can't verify that 100%, but even if it's not, that second Gravity Leap deals a huge amount of damage based off of the first one multiplying the second one's damage, and then you would do the 3 earthquakes. I haven't seen a crowd of enemies be able to survive that combo, like literally at all. There is one small problem is with literally all builds in the game. There is bosses or certain elites, and after you damage them so much, or if they've had a certain status applied to them for a certain amount of time, or have had a certain amount of damage done to them from a status effect, you cannot apply any status effect. The Endless Mass will not be able to be used on them. It'll say effect resistant. So what you can do is you will Gravity Leap them twice, Earthquake them 3 times, and 9 times out of 10 they'll be dead from that, if not dead from that the second time you do it. So the weapons we're running, this is the weapon you're going to be holding in your hand at all times. I suggest the status power and Steel's Life Leech status power, as I said, could be run on these 2 as well as with this, to have a little bit more damage whenever you melee an enemy. The first mod on this can literally be anything you want it to be. Doesn't matter. You could have, the comet be on it. You could have anything, whatever you want. I don't feel like this bleed that's on it is the best option at all. There's many other options that you could use. However, you're going to be using it still so often that this is not going to be your main source of damage. So you could do, whatever you want to do on this. However, I do suggest running a mod that is already on it, one of the tier 1s or 2s. That way you can run Fortress as the second. So you can't run 2 tier 3s unless you find a secondary that has a decent mod you'd like from one of these, something like that. Whatever you're comfortable with. I just highly suggest the gun that you're holding in your hand, which I would suggest being your secondary, or it could be one of these if you're comfortable with however you need to swap your weapons. But it needs to have Fortress on it for sure. Then the other 2 guns, no matter what rotation you're going to be doing with weapon swapping, I would suggest be both reload guns. So these are both exactly like guillotine and the Anomaly, I think is how you pronounce it, this shotgun from the Moaning Winds. I only have these because I have status power on each one of these rather than what is on the other two. I actually don't have the guillotine on my character right now. But I felt like the status power on these, is just keeping it up that 30% whatever gun I have in my hands at all times. Just for a little bit more damage. It's not going to be that noticeable though at all. But the clip combustion I feel like is better to have as the second because of not a lot of the multiplicative buffs are going to increase those numbers damage, but some will. Mainly the uptime that you can keep on clip combustion is if you are having a problem with cooldowns, which you won't on this build, but you can swap back and forth, back, forth, just to finish off like one or two enemies that are off in the corner by themselves, rather than wasting your abilities on them, because they're back every 2 seconds. So you can just 1 second, 2 second, 3 second, 4 second, it's just back and forth, and you can just kind of finish those extra little guys off without wasting any of your abilities on the odd guys. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the skills so you can see the cooldowns. 6, 9, 11, pretty good. However, I will say that the cooldown on this piece and this piece are not maxed, so those can do better. And now the class tree. I did a lot of testing with this class tree, and I feel like this is absolutely 100% the best way to go about it. There's one dead mod or node though that you're not going to have working in here. It'd be this one. We're not using any protection skills, but we're mainly using this up here. So the quickest route to getting to this and this is by picking that. So now I'll just go over them. So Anomaly Power, Seismic skill cooldown for the Earthquake, which is going to be most of your damage at the end of the rotation. Anomaly Power, the Dead Node, and then you can see Strong Arm of the Anomaly. This is extremely important. This is why I wanted to come back to the Unstoppable Force mod that we have on our gloves. So when you melee an enemy, you get 15% resistance piercing. In this build, it is to funnel multiple enemies into one location, which makes it extremely easy to melee 5 or 6 enemies at one time. So what you get from just by doing that is not just resistance piercing, because what we get from gaining resistance piercing, we gain anomaly power. So let's say we just only meleeed 2 enemies. We got 30% resistance piercing. What that is going to do, since we get half of our resistance piercing turned into anomaly power, we're going to get 15% more anomaly power. When we gain more anomaly power on top of what we already have, we gain more armor from this. It's 40% of your anomaly power is increasing your armor, like that number. So increase your armor bonus by 40% of your anomaly power. So if we can keep gaining anomaly power just by meleeing 1 or 10 enemies at one time, no matter whether the resistance piercing breaks 100%, which it can, it'll still give you armor and anomaly power. Like I said, even if it breaks 100%, it'll give you that much more. So that is extremely helpful with survivability as well as more damage. Then we have the health node. This is extremely helpful because you've seen with the cooldowns, this is pretty much up all the time. 15% damage mitigation when you use it, when your kinetic seal ends. So you'll constantly, every time you're in between abilities, this will pop up. So if that lasts for 10 seconds after gravity leap, you already have it back before you're even going to do it again. And with the animations of the skills itself, it'll even be before this is back. Or you'll have it still even going on. This will be back before it runs out. So then we have the kinetic skill cooldown. We need both of those. So that's why we went up this way in the skill tree. If we come back down here, we get the resistance piercing, the other kinetic skill cooldowns, anomaly power, seismic cooldowns, anomaly power, and then executioner, probably the one of the strongest nodes in the whole tree, and a lot of the class, or I think all the classes have this somewhere. If you're able to get that, it's extremely powerful. Very, 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 very strong. It's very, very good for executing and dealing extremely high damage to bosses and elites. Anomaly power, skills leech, we've already seen this. And then this, increase armor by 20% and resistance by 20% whenever your skill ends. So obviously you're going to gain more armor, which is going to give you more resistance on top of what you're getting from this, plus more resistance whenever a skill ends, plus whenever this skill ends, you get the damage mitigation. So I mean, it's just a ton of survivability just from the few things you see there, as well as just meleeing to get more anomaly power to get more armor. Then we have the resistance piercing. Both of these are necessary to keep your base up, that way you can get this higher to 100%. And plus, just by having those, I'm getting a buff right now. And the last node, increase the seismic skill base damage by 50%, so you're increasing the base damage of earthquake by 50% plus the mod we already have. So now what we are going to do is I'm going to go through Scorched Lands and see how well I do, since somebody suggested in the very last video that I was saying I would reveal. So we're just emptying both those mags, and this gun is just to hold in our hands. And you'll see as soon as this loads up on the left, it's a tier 15. And I have only done this once in gold, so let's see how this goes. Some of the other ones I've done multiple times. I'm still looking for a seismic commander helmet. A lot of times I like to group them up like this, that way you can do this. Tons of damage. This is one of those situations I was talking about with the secondary, or the reload guns. You don't want to waste your abilities on these guys. All your abilities come back so fast it doesn't really matter. These guys are just the little guys that don't really matter. Alright. And I'm going to try to kite some of these guys into a group. And you gotta kind of wait a second, I noticed. Guarantee that they are all within the radius. That way they all get that from the leap. Like these guys are going tied. Another thing that's really nice about gravity leap is the amount of mobility you get from it. And this. Birds are probably the biggest problem. You cannot target them with your skills most of the time. These guys out the way. They like to keep their distance. The thing you can do with those guys is just get away from me for a second. You can see just that damage from the leap is extremely high buff you get from it. Gotta be very careful with how you target it as well. You can mess up like I just did. Yeah, there it is with the birds. They need to really fix that. Make them come down maybe a little more often. There we go. And like I said, you want to melee as much as possible. I haven't been really doing that right there. All right, and here we go. There's the brood mother now. So in situations like this, you're not going to be able to use too much mass because you're going to near other enemies. So I would use rotation until you get some ads around it, unless there are no ads. Do this, wait for the guy to come back, smash. One of the reasons why we're not running both of the guns is because you can get that vulnerability on the enemy. That increases your base damage from all three. See, that second one actually killed me. I just left him back here to gain some momentum towards the next area. So remember this one having lots of alphas, and I think crawler. Get an angle, we can both alphas and earthquake. Always want to look for the right angle. Again. Comes out of it. Still too far. Got a brood mother. I think there's actually two going to be up here. Crawler spawn back there. What we're gonna do now is just kite the enemy up and get a couple stragglers along the way. There's the crawler. I don't want to focus him down or anything else, mainly because of they do interrupt. These guys just have way got him out of again, example of trying to focus out the little guys with guns rather than abilities. Always has enough time on it. Now we're going to try to apply the vulnerable. Into melee more for sure for this. Stuck right here. Part should be fun because you get a lot more enemies more grouped up in this area.
Here. Damn thing
Sometimes your feet kind of glitch out in that area when the water goes away. It
happens
to me. It usually only happens to me whenever I'm not close though. guys spawn out now. What? Again. What enemy is highlighted with that yellow. Wait on the gravity leap. Get some melees out the way. We can get all of them to group up from both sides. Here. A good chunk of them out of the way. Should have probably already been moving in this direction. Oh, yeah, we have to now. We're good. And this one you want to stay more towards this side. That crawler gets too close. Alright. Now we can focus this dude down. This is the only thing I really like about this. Not this build, the leap for facing crawlers. Kind of get in the air like this while they're doing the thing. Last them hit over 1 million earthquake. Kind of showing off how the multi-afflicted buffs work. Whatever we're talking about. Barely waiting for that fucking reload. Alright, so we're gonna wait on the leap and then finish them off. Alright, there it is. Why we wanted to stay on this side so we could get that out the way. See if Emeth has the skull on the map right there.
The flood's cleared up. I can reach the pod now.
Use one too many earthquakes. That AoE is too big. Some of the attacks, AoEs, do not like they're solo players. It's literally impossible to avoid them. Alright, so I'm gonna try to kite a little bit. Alright, here we go. One of the birds take out of the bird. That. And then can't do this. Alright. There we go. So back by one. That's that second one. unless they're really fast. They'll start grouping up down here. Tight a little bit. Alright, so you guys can see we got gold on Scorched Lands.
Alright, Zahidi, I found one of our pods.
Video.
And as a bonus, we can all start bathing again.
Excellent.
Video and
that water's gonna be a lifesaver, Outrider.
Next.
I'll be sure to bring people
enjoy
good
the
news.
build. Definitely try it out. Let me know what you think. And I'll see you guys in the next one.